Welcome back to the Daily Crypto Deep Dive. If you've been in crypto for any amount of time, you've heard Tron mentioned, but usually in passing. It's rarely the headline. It doesn't have the meme status of Dogecoin, the cult-like ecosystem of Solana, or the deeply entrenched developer narrative that surrounds Ethereum. And yet, Tron just sits there, year after year, in the top 10, moving enormous amounts of money, hosting tens of billions in stablecoins, and quietly doing more real-world crypto work than most of the chains people constantly talk about. So today we're going to do this properly. What Tron actually does, why TRX is so stable compared to other altcoins, why it's been top 10 for so long, why nobody really talks about it, and whether Tron is underrated or simply misunderstood. Because Tron is one of those projects where, if you only judge it by social media hype, you completely miss what's really going on. Before we get into today's deep dive, this episode is sponsored by Kraken. If you're serious about crypto, and you actually want a platform that's been around through multiple cycles, Kraken is one of the most established and trusted exchanges in the space. They offer deep liquidity, strong security, and easy access to major assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, XRP, and more. If you want to check them out, there's a Kraken link in the description. It's a simple way to support the show while using an exchange that's built for long-term crypto users, not just hype cycles. Alright, let's get into it. Let's start with the question that sounds simple but really isn't. Why is Tron still here? Because most projects from the 2017 to 2018 era are gone. Completely gone. That entire generation of crypto is mostly a graveyard. Narratives collapsed, founders disappeared, communities fractured, ecosystems dried up. Tron didn't just survive that era. It adapted. It stayed relevant, stayed liquid, stayed useful, and most importantly, it found product-market fit. Not in the way it originally promised, not in decentralized media or content creators overthrowing big tech, but as a settlement network. Tron became infrastructure. It became the place where stablecoins move cheaply, quickly, and reliably at scale. And once you understand Tron as a global stablecoin rail, everything else about it suddenly makes sense. Tron is not a hype chain. Tron is a functional chain. It's plumbing. Nobody tweets about plumbing, but if it breaks, everything else stops working. That's the role Tron quietly plays in crypto today. The brand story most people know is Justin Sun: aggressive marketing, big announcements, controversy, and skepticism from the crypto intellectual class. Tron was never the darling of decentralization purists. But the usage story is completely different. Millions of people use Tron every day without even thinking about it, because they're moving USDT. That is Tron's real superpower. Tron actually started from almost nothing, and that gets forgotten. Back in 2017, it launched during the ICO boom as an ERC20 token on Ethereum, with a huge vision, but no blockchain of its own. At the time, most people wrote it off as pure marketing, because the promises were big and the product barely existed. But instead of disappearing like so many projects from that era, Tron did something most didn't. It shipped. In 2018, it launched its own mainnet, migrated off Ethereum, built its own consensus system, and started attracting users through speed and near-zero fees. From there, Tron grew the hard way. Not through hype, but through usage. Acquisitions like BitTorrent, and relentless focus on being cheap, fast, and accessible, especially for everyday transfers. That shift from idea to infrastructure is the reason Tron is still here while most of its peers are long gone. Once Tron had its own chain up and running, the strategy became very clear very quickly. Instead of trying to out-innovate Ethereum or chase whatever narrative was hot that year, Tron focused on doing one thing extremely well: making transactions fast, cheap, and predictable. That decision shaped everything that followed. Fees were kept close to zero, confirmation times stayed short, and the network was designed so ordinary users could actually use it without thinking about gas prices or congestion. That's what quietly pulled people in, not headlines. Developers, exchanges, and everyday users realized Tron just worked, and over time it became less of an experiment and more of a piece of infrastructure people relied on, even if they didn't talk about it. At its core, Tron is a Layer 1 blockchain with smart contracts, tokens, and decentralized applications, just like most major chains. but it is designed around speed and cost efficiency. It uses a delegated proof-of-stake model with a small number of validators, called super representatives, producing blocks. That design choice is why Tron can offer fast confirmations and extremely low fees. It also creates the trade-off critics always point to: reduced decentralization compared to Ethereum. But Tron made that trade intentionally. It prioritized predictable performance and user experience over ideological purity. And for its core user base, that decision paid off. If you are moving $500 in stablecoins, or sending money across borders, or shuffling funds between exchanges, you don't care about philosophical debates. You care whether the transaction is fast, cheap, and reliable. Tron wins that comparison almost every time. And this brings us to TRX itself, and why it behaves so differently to most altcoins. Most altcoins are unstable, because demand is speculative. People buy because they think price will go up. They sell because they're scared it won't. Tron is different because TRX has ongoing utility demand. The network uses a resource model where TRX is staked to obtain bandwidth and energy. More activity on Tron means more ongoing demand for TRX at a structural level. Tron's massive stablecoin usage creates constant baseline demand that doesn't disappear when sentiment shifts. In fact, during volatile markets, Tron usage often increases as people move into stablecoins. That makes Tron oddly counter-cyclical compared to most altcoins. Another factor is Tron's user base. Tron is heavily used outside the Western crypto Twitter bubble. In emerging markets, stablecoins are not a trading tool, they're money. Tron is embedded in that reality. That's why Tron can have massive on-chain activity while being almost invisible in online discourse. Discourse is about narrative. Usage is about necessity. Tron lives in necessity. This also explains why it remains in the top 10 without hype. Market cap ultimately reflects sustained demand and liquidity. Tron has both. It has deep exchange support, enormous stablecoin flows, wide integration, and a token that is constantly being used rather than simply held. Tron also benefits from active stewardship. Love it or hate it, Tron has never been leaderless. Justin Sun and Tron-affiliated entities actively maintain the ecosystem, defend liquidity, and build partnerships. That alone separates Tron from many abandoned projects. This is a good point to point out if you're holding crypto long-term. Self-custody matters. A ledger wallet lets you keep control of your assets off exchanges, where you own the keys and the coins are actually yours. There's a ledger link in the description if you want to support the channel and secure your crypto properly. Now, you cannot talk about Tron without talking about Justin Sun. He is both the reason Tron exists at this scale and the reason many people distrust it. He is a relentless promoter, strategist, and operator. He has pulled stunts, attracted controversy, and faced regulatory scrutiny. But he has also kept Tron alive, relevant, and expanding when many founders disappeared. Tron is not a passive project, it is actively driven. The BitTorrent acquisition was a key moment in Tron's early vision, bringing a massive user base into the ecosystem. While decentralized content didn't become Tron's defining narrative, that acquisition positioned Tron as a web-scale blockchain. But over time, the real transformation happened elsewhere. Tron became the easiest place for USDT to live. Ethereum was too expensive. Other chains were less entrenched. Tron offered speed, cost efficiency, and reliability. Once that network effect formed, it reinforced itself. Exchanges supported Tron USDT because users wanted it. Users wanted it because exchanges supported it. Liquidity followed flow, and flow followed liquidity. That is how Tron became systemically important without being exciting. It does boring finance at scale, and boring finance is where real money lives. Tron's DeFi ecosystem exists, but it is not where Tron's soul is. Ethereum invents DeFi. Solana experiments with high-speed consumer finance. Tron executes. It lends, swaps, settles, and moves stablecoins efficiently. That's its lane. When you compare Tron to Ethereum and Solana, the differences become clear. Ethereum is decentralization and innovation. Solana is speed and consumer experience. Tron is settlement and stability. each has trade-offs. Tron sacrifices decentralization to gain cost certainty and throughput. That choice aligns perfectly with stablecoin usage, which values reliability over experimentation. The risks are real. Regulatory pressure is the biggest. Tron's role in stablecoins makes it visible to regulators. Founder risk exists. Competition exists from Ethereum Layer 2s and other fast chains. Tron must continue to maintain its cost advantage and liquidity dominance to stay relevant. But Tron has already proven it can survive cycles, scale usage, and remain top 10 without narrative support. Here is the truth that matters. Tron is not the future vision of crypto. Tron is crypto now. It is infrastructure. It is the chain people use when they don't want drama. And TRX reflects that reality. It does not behave like a meme. It behaves like a utility backbone. If you've ever chosen Tron because it was cheaper, if you've ever moved USDT on Tron because it worked, you've participated in the very thing that keeps Tron alive. Tron doesn't need hype to survive. It needs usage, and it has that in abundance. So the question for the future isn't whether Tron is exciting. It's whether stablecoins continue to grow as the core use case of crypto. If they do, Tron remains one of the most important blockchains in the ecosystem, whether people talk about it or not. And that's the real takeaway. Tron is the silent giant, the stablecoin highway, the chain nobody flexes, but everyone uses. And TRX stays stable because it is tied to one of the biggest real use cases crypto has ever produced: moving digital dollars. If you want to support the show and secure your crypto properly, the Ledger link is in the description. And I want you to comment this, because it tells me how you see the market. Is Tron underrated infrastructure, or a centralized relic riding USDT flow? Drop undervalued or overhyped below. Like and follow, and as always, we will see you at the top.